we have a pretty good crew here. I'm glad to see all of the youngsters, children, because that's the future, and that's what we're looking at right now. Right now, I'd like to call the Reverend Washington up here for the invocation, and I want to thank him for all the strings he's pulled with God to have such a day like this for this observation.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we gather here on these hallowed grounds of the city of Rye to commemorate and memorialize a tragic event. Oh God, this country, this great country, so young, 230 some years, a lot has happened, good and bad. We remember the words of the great prophet Solomon. There's a time to live, a time to die, a time to laugh and a time to cry, a time to be happy and a time to be sad. And so, God, we gather here today on a somber day, but a happy day, because we realize that through the evil deeds that were done to innocent people, working people, people with dreams, people with aspirations, desires, their lives was snubbed out by evil people who did not like our way of life. But nevertheless, oh God, we lean on you. And we lean on the fact that we must not stop. We must continue to move forward. And remember the great words of our great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln, who said in a time of war, a time of tragedy, that we must have malice toward none and charity for all. As difficult as it is, we must have the firmness and the right as God gave us to see them. And we must strive on to finish the work we're in, because this event characterized us as a great country. We thank you, Lord. Amen.
I'd like the children to stand up, if that's, let's go right over here, and we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, just the way we should be doing it in the class every day. Turn to the flag, everybody join in, and let's repeat the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, children, for leading us. Right now, we'll have usually the man that runs this for all of these ceremonies. Man, I couldn't do without Jerry Logan, and he'll bring on the next speaker as well. First, we'll have Ron James, Ron Sorensen, who is the head of this committee.
Pleasure to be here today. Today is a solemn day, and as we reflect within the entire nation of what we feel, of what our past histories are, not only of the 9/11, but all the battles and in all the wars. I'm so proud to be here. My roots as a Legionnaire of Portchester Post 93 are here. Not only that, we have a flag, an M-I-A-O-O-N yellow flag that has been flying around in this nation in different areas and throughout the world that honors the victims of terrorism. And we're going to raise that flag again this year. We also have an outstanding bill sponsor in George Latimer, who's up in Albany battling to see if we can get the recognition in one way or another for this flag. It is the only flag that flew in the Mideast, this M-I-A-O-O-N flag with the 10th Mountain Division. A flag that has been given to West Point cadets, state troopers, and Brandon Morocco, who lost his arms and legs. It is an incredible gift to give to people, to remind them and say thank you to your service. Thank you as to who I am and how old I am, as young people who are now fighting in our wars. So, as I have this reflection upon what is done, and I see here in this beautiful community, and I look over the water and I see the people, and time passes by and I think of Fred Schmeling and a lot of the people that I remember in the Legion of Portchester and other areas. What a great country we live in. We will raise this flag, and its reflection will individually affect each of you as to remember, as you see each other, and maybe even me, and say, you know, it's an amazing thing that people would make something that simply reminds you, where you don't have to travel anywhere and see it, and be proud that we are Americans, and we serve the country, and this flag will fly here, maybe for a moment, maybe for a year, but it is an official flag flying in the state of Rhode Island over its capital today, and Bergen County, New Jersey, which has 1,300,000 people voted to fly the flag year-round, making this an official flag of the United States of America. You have here a Legionnaire in your community, a veteran who did that. God bless all of you, your children, your families, this nation. I'm deeply honored to be here today, and I thank everybody who is here today. God bless you.
Is it being raised at this moment? Okay, let us take that time. See it come up.
By the way, when you fly this anti-terrorism flag like they do in Rhode Island, you do not have to lower the American flag anymore. The yellow and black flag defines the honor of recognizing everybody involved with the terrorism. That's the correct way to fly the American flag, the POW flag, and now the new official flag of the United States passing 2 states, the MIAON flag.
Jerry?
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for my being late. I went to the wrong place today. I misread it, but I'm here. And this is a very special day, as everybody knows. And it's something that I've been at for a number of years, and as long as my legs will carry me, I'll continue to do it as long as I'm wanted. Everybody obviously is listening to the radios, watching television. It's a reminder, and it should be reminded of the number of people that lost their lives in that horrible, horrible thing. And one can only hope that with the enhanced things that we're doing here to prevent something like that again, we can only hope to God that it doesn't happen again. So, as we say our prayers, obviously, that's one of the things we want to pray about. What I'd like to do now is trying to bring up, let's see, list here, we have George Latimer with us today, a good assemblyman, a good friend to all of us. George, if you come up for a moment, say a few words.
Thank you very much, Jerry, and everybody who's here this morning for this morning. You can't help but think about the different experiences we have as Americans. I'm standing right in front of my friend, Norm Rosenblum, who's the mayor of Mamaroneck Village. He'll be speaking in a few minutes. Norm and I saw each other on Friday night at the exuberant block party at downtown Mamaroneck Shares, which was a wonderful evening of fun and frivolity. And then yesterday morning, Norm and I and many other people here, Joe Carvin, were at a meeting about government for 2 hours in the morning. A very serious meeting about analysis of structures of government. And then now, Norm, you and I and the rest are here for a very different kind of event. And that's the diversity of American life. And we have all of these different kinds of things. And that's what freedom gives us. I think at a moment like this, of the day of my high school graduation, 41 years ago, I hate to admit that, as I got my cap and gown, I was graduating Mount Vernon High School. My mother and father were there, and my father was a blue-collar guy, very blunt guy, turned to me, and I was very proud. I had the diploma under my arm, and he said, "So what did you learn?" I don't know if you kids hear that when you come home from school. Mom, Dad, what did you learn? And I didn't know if he was kidding me. He wanted me to tell him what I learned over 4 years or what I learned that minute from the graduation. But those words have stuck with me all of my life. And if you ever had a father, mother, whoever asked you that, you know how it signifies. I've asked myself in good times and bad, what did I learn? What did I learn from this experience when my car broke down on the hutch? What did I learn from the experience of going to buy something and I didn't have enough money in my pocket? What did I learn from those things? A day like today, 10 years later, is a time to ask ourselves, what did we learn? What did we learn from a day that looked almost exactly like this 10 years ago, and in the 10 years since that day? I would offer that, first of all, we learned that in this world there is real bravery. Not the bravery we see on television, in a scripted show for 1 hour when people do brave things, but that in the real world that we saw, with those towers on fire, fire trucks came over the Brooklyn Bridge from Staten Island and Brooklyn firehouses, and they pulled up and looked up at a building that was burning. None of us rational people would ever go into a burning building. These men and women went into that building, and they went up in that building to save lives. And with them were police officers and EMS. That's real bravery. That's not phony. That's real. We learned that in this world there was real grief. For the men amongst us, sometimes it's considered not manly to show grief. We're supposed to suck it up, be strong. It's the way we're taught by our fathers. And then you watch, in a situation like this, grown men who had served side by side with people that they had lost, people who meant something to them. You watch them cry, and you watch the nation cry, and you realize that a communal expression of grief is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of commonality, that we share something. And when we have these 9/11 ceremonies all day long, when we stand in the Village Green in Rye, when we're at Lyon Park in Portchester, we're at the Girl Scout Rock March Mount Mamaroneck, we're at the Rising in Kensico Dam, we're going to hear names of people that we knew and we loved that are gone. And we realize that grief is right and it's appropriate. We learn that there's evil in this world. Real evil. It's not just something that an academic or a sociologist, it's not situational. There were men who sat in a bar on a Monday night who on a Tuesday morning hijacked an airplane and took it fully loaded into an office building. That's evil. There's no way to justify it. It's not how they grew up. It's not different cultures. It's evil. We understand it. We've learned it. We've learned, hopefully we don't forget this one, that as much as you have to live every day expecting to have another one, and you plan today for what's going to happen in 2 months or 6 months or in a year. My daughter's getting married next year. There's nothing but planning going on. Every time I turn around, planning that attaches money to it, I might add. But none of us are guaranteed the next day or the next hour, and we learned that. There were people who said goodbye to each other that morning, casually. See you later, talk to you, we're going to Mom's house this weekend, or I'll have the car in the shop. I'll see you later. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Maybe not even a kiss on the cheek, because people never saw each other again. And if they knew that that was going to be their last moment, that would have been a completely different moment. So we don't have the next guaranteed next day or the next hour. We learned that. And finally, what I think we learned is that we are a diverse nation. We have different political beliefs. We represent different ethnic backgrounds or different colors of our skin. We argue amongst each other. If somebody cuts you off on the highway and you wave your fist, and you don't see any commonality in this. At the end of the day, they went into those towers not purposefully to kill people from Cantor Fitzgerald. They didn't go into the towers to kill somebody from Aon. They went into those towers to kill Americans. And in that building, the Americans that died were Jewish, and they were Christian, they were Buddhist, and they were Hindu, and they were even Muslims, and those of no religious affiliation. They killed men and women, young people, old people, black and white, Latino, Asian, didn't matter. And at times when we were at each other's throats in disagreement because we're so sure we're right and the other guy is wrong. Dad, what did I learn from this? That we're all Americans.
What I'd like to do now is bring up here to take this over here. Lisa, can you come up, please? Lisa? Put you in the lot. We never asked you to do anything like this, Bishop, and you put this whole thing together. Join this young lady here. I see Mayor Pillar's here. Mayor, would you come up too? And the three of you, take this and put it up. Appreciate that. Would you like to come up and say a few words, sir?
It's very hard to try and think of the proper words to say, and that in itself is an oxymoron. I don't know proper words when we hear it, because it's a combination of remembrance and celebration, ironically. We get to remember the worst attack in modern history in the United States. As George said, it was an attack on every American. It was also an attack on everyone throughout the world who believes in the concept of freedom. If you live in this area, either if you didn't know someone direct, you know someone who suffered a tragedy. We have to remember it wasn't only the World Trade Center, but it was also the Pentagon and UA-93. Unfortunately for me, I knew a lot of people directly involved in this that perished. One, Don Green, who I'd like to know, who was a personal friend and the president of the Safe Flight Instrument Corps, was on UA-93, and would have been the pilot were they successful in commandeering the plane back again. They did get control of the plane. Unfortunately, the terrorists just jammed the throttles forward and went straight down. But they knew what was happening. They were all aware. The FBI had interviewed all the families. The majority of the people on that plane called home. They knew what was happening at the Pentagon World Trade Center. Yet these individuals, who are no different than you and I, commandeered this plane and took over, and they successfully defeated these terrorists. Unfortunately, they're not here to celebrate it. I also
happened to see a local program, LMC TV, where you see individual comments on what happened. One was by Greg Sullivan, who described his brother who was working at Camp Fitzgerald and the just fatalistic event where he was perished. And I can honestly say that after 10 years of singing events like that, tears still come to my eyes. It's hard not to do it now, but again, you have to remember to celebrate the basic principles and the freedoms that we take for granted. There's a flag that I brought back. It's the same flag that there are hundreds of them flying at the World Trade Center. And they list all the names of the 343. Those are the firemen, as George said. And when everyone else was running in terror, they ran straight up. And also the Port Authority cops and New York City cops and everyone else who haven't been there that served. And these are no men and women that are no different than you and I. They are brothers, uncles, aunts, sisters, and so on. And yet they are dedicated to the very principles that we must remember. And there's that theme, never forget. Just never forget and don't take for granted the principles. The people that are here, we're singing to the chorus. It's the people that are your friends that you must remember, and the children, because they are the future. And that's exactly what we're here to do. We're here to commemorate the memorial and also celebrate the fact that we are the best country in the world. And I have nothing else to say but God bless America.
Mayor Pillar, would you like to say a few words at this time, sir?
Good morning. We come today as one community on the anniversary of the 10th anniversary of the most vicious attack on our country, when a group of thugs stood behind a distorted view of religion and killed thousands of innocent people. We gather here to pay tribute to those innocents that lost their lives, to pay tribute to the heroes, as the speakers before me said, who ran into the flames to help save people. But today we also come together with the families of those victims who lost their lives, to pay tribute and to honor them, and also to pay tribute to the brave men and women within our own communities who went down on that pile and backed up those fire stations in mutual aid and really in that show of solidarity. And from out of the rubble of the ashes on that terrible day when really our world stood still for a brief moment, we really emerged as a country, right, united with solidarity and great resolve to really stand firm to the beliefs that we hold very dear: liberty, equality, diversity, and justice. So really, let's stand together as a community, not just remember the bad parts, but really what came from out of that feeling of strong unity and togetherness that we felt, and consideration for one of us, for each other. And let's live it every day as one community. Thank you very much.
We have Judy Myers with us today. Would you like to say a few words for us, please? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Judy Myers. I'm a county legislator. And more than anything else today, I feel a great feeling of discomfort. This is not like your regular Memorial Day celebration, your Labor Day, your day of Veterans Day. This is a day that is still extremely raw, especially, I think, for those of us in this area where we did all know people, where we knew innocent people who had absolutely no idea when they went to work on a Tuesday morning what was going to happen. And there was no rationale. We weren't at war. There was no reason in the world why this happened other than pure evil and pure hatred. And as I think about that, I realize I'm supposed to feel uncomfortable today. And I hope that we all feel uncomfortable, because what happened was not right, and what happened must never be forgotten. And we still live with this, and we are at war, like it or not. And there are people out there who want to see our way of life destroyed. And it's also a day to remember that our communities came together on that Tuesday morning And they raced over to, a lot of our first responders raced over to Playland parking lot so that they could amass there and take their instruction from the Department of Emergency Services and the Office of Emergency Management that went out immediately to get into the city so that the New York City firefighters and police officers could go downtown. And we had firefighters here in Mamaroneck and Rye who actually fought fires in the Bronx because those firefighters had gone down to the scene, to ground zero. So my only message today is for everybody to keep feeling uncomfortable, because we shouldn't be comfortable ever with terror. Thank you.
What I'd like to do now is I have a poem here that my wife found, and I think it's very appropriate for today, so I'd like to recite that at this time. And this poem was written by Mary Rodriguez of New Bedford. And it says as follows. On September 11, 2001, the day was clear. Most people went to work without any fear. Then all of a sudden, the whole world changed. When the planes hit the towers, we were all so drained. Little did we know what was lying ahead. So many times, somebody did. It was a day so fear. Never realizing such a horror was ever to hear. The people band together to help, you see. Firemen, police, and medical trainees. There were strangers helping anyone who to survive. And became ecstatic when they found someone alive. The barbarous were broken, a statue in color. All worked together to help one another. Everyone there was trying to overcome the chaos and the fear that had just begun. New York, Washington, a field in Pennsylvania, which sometimes we forget. Our whole world came crashing down in such a swirl. The tragedy we saw on that day is sad. You'll be with us always, and so we pray. We pray for the lost and their families too. We will never forget them, no matter what we do. David Goldfarb, would you like to say a couple words at this time for the town board?
Good morning. As we look out on this beautiful site, on this beautiful scene, we are reminded that God has created a wonderful country, that we have been blessed to live in what is the greatest nation in the world, and at the same time we must remember and honor the victims of this horrific event that took place on 9/11. That still under these beautiful skies and in this beautiful scene, we really feel a sense of rebirth and restoration, and a sense that we can and we did come together as one nation on 9/11. And I would like to thank and honor, and ask that we thank and honor the memory of all of those who lost, all of those who we lost on 9/11, and to again honor and recall the hard work, the dedication, and the efforts that we put in subsequent to 9/11 by our brave soldiers around the world, and our armed forces, and the many, many New Yorkers from the police, the fire, the EMS, say. I'm not great at making speeches on very, very solemn occasions, so I would like to say thank you to all of you for coming, and God bless you.
Are there any members of the police department or the fire department here with us today? I'd now like to ask our gentleman from the post here to do now the taps and the salute. Yes, before we start that, anyone here today that had a loved one, a relative, friend that lost their life on that horrible day, would you take your little flag and plant it over here? You can do that now. While they're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, Bishop reminded that on 8:46 in the morning was when the first plane hit the tower. And so we should really take a moment of silence to remember that. Thank you very much. Mr. Villanova, would you like to say a few words at this time, sir?
We will never forget September 11th, 10 years ago. And as Assemblyman Latimer said, the day was like today. It was a calm day, it was beautiful, the skies were blue. We'll remember the first responders, firefighters, law enforcement, the military that responded. We should remember the first responders, both uniformed and civilian, whose lives may have been compromised from working down there for those several months. We'll never forget the memories of the 2,977 victims that lost their lives. As Mayor Pilla said, they were innocent, and they are innocent. There's no greater action that we can have going forward than to remember the resolve that our nation had, how we were unified on September 12th. The courage of the first responders, the paths that they led, and the way that they took people from those areas of destruction and led them to safety. You have to think also about the people that were not killed. There could have been far worse.
There have been far many that would have lost their lives that day if we didn't have people of courage and conviction and character. And as was mentioned earlier, the firefighters and the police officers that ran in to those areas and that were able to help people, to save people. So we have to keep that in our minds. And I want everyone to leave here today thinking of September 12th, the day that we were unified, the day that we should be unified now, the way that we should be. God bless you.
Can we now do the taps and salute, please?
On the guard, prepare to fire. Ready, aim, fire. 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 That's on.
Reverend Washington to come forward.
Excuse me, Reverend. Sorry, ladies. Joe Carmen, Town Supervisor. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we got one more politician to suffer through. But I think what we can all see today, what we can see is how each and every one of us is struggling 10 years on to reconcile this event. I think County Legislator Myers is absolutely right. We should be outraged at this horrific and morally reprehensible act. And I think State Assemblyman Latimer had absolutely right. What did we learn? And I think it's very clear what we learned. We learned that America's strong. We learned that America will never give up. We learned that we'll fight to the end to get this right. August 7th, 2011, just over 30 days ago, the Chinook helicopter went down in Afghanistan. We lost 30 of our soldiers, 22 Navy SEALs. They're part of this fight. They're part of this argument. And I know there's not one person here today that will rest until this horrible, horrible tragedy is avenged. It's not a war on terror. It's a war for civilization. A war for civilization. And State Assemblyman Latimer was out. What did we learn? What we learned is our communities are strong. I want to take this opportunity to thank my right-hand man, Bishop Milwaukee, for organizing this event today in short notice. And I want to thank Howard Weiss and the Veterans Association for making it clear why we need strong veteran associations in our community. Thank you, Howard. I want to thank Mayor Jerry Logan for everything he does for our community. You know, for those of you who have a chance, come with us on Memorial Day. There's at least 11 war memorials in Portchester. And we go from memorial to memorial, remembering those that made the ultimate sacrifice for our community. Jerry Logan leads that effort every year. He also does the 4th of July. We have no fireworks on the 4th of July if it wasn't for Jerry Logan. He also does the Columbus Day. That's what community participation is all about. If this community is not strong, America's not strong. Jerry, thank you for all your service. And finally, I want to thank Reverend Washington. I had the great pleasure of attending his 30th wedding anniversary, and also 30 years of mentoring and leading his church. 30 years he's provided spiritual leadership to our community. He has clearly established himself as the spiritual leader of our community, and I can't thank him enough for intermediating between the heavens today And to those of us around here, thank you very much. And most importantly, I want to thank all of you. A lot's happened in the last 10 years. My two daughters, Kira and Rihanna, weren't born 10 years ago. They never had a chance to meet their uncle. But you know what? Their uncle's here with us today. And they know their uncle because of you and because of the strength that the families have had. No one's moving on, but we have to move forward. We'll never forget the sorrow and pain is profound. There's a Brazilian song that says, Tristeza não tem fim, felicidade sim. Sadness has no end, but happiness does. That sadness is going to be with us forever. Deep down, it's going to be with us forever. It's horrifically difficult to have that grief and share that in a public way. But this is all of our grief. And I'm thrilled that each and every one of you is helping us deal with that grief in the many ways, in numerous ways that you do, by making our community a better community, helping my daughters to know their uncle. I also want to say, I know firsthand how strong our families have been, and I'm just thrilled and honored and so grateful for the courage that the victims' families and the victims' parents more than anything have shown. They've kept their families strong, they've moved forward, and they're rebuilding their lives. And I'm just going to give you a short personal comment here, and ask everybody just to grab the hand of the person next to you. Listen to this wonderful, beautiful setting, this natural setting. I did this 10 years ago when we talked to a packed church in the Resurrection here in Rye, New York. And I said very clearly that they can take away the bodies of our loved ones, but they'll never take away the spirit and soul of our loved ones, so long as we remember them and we bring them to life every day. When those guns went off and those signals went into the sky, they were with us here today. And I also want to talk about the courage that the families have shown over these 10 years. And I'll end on this note. 10 years ago, my 17-year-old niece got up in front of this packed church with everybody holding hands. And she said, I'm going to share one lesson with you that my father shared with me. I want you to be nice to everyone you meet, because you don't know where they have a vacation home. That courage, that 17-year-old girl is about to get married next Saturday. That courage has been with her every day, and her father's been with her every day. So I can't thank you enough for coming out, remembering, supporting, and keeping up the good fight, because this is a fight for civilization that we will not lose. Thank you very much.
I'll ask Reverend Washington to step up for the benediction now. Reverend.
Through this uncertain world of ours, once and only once we pass, so that if there's a kindness that we may do, or a good deed that we may show to some suffering fellow man, then let us do it while we can. Let us not delay, for it is plain we shall not pass this way again. We thank you for this occasion, this solemn occasion. Glory be to our God in heaven. Amen.
I just want to bring out one other thing, small, but it's what we're all about. 10 years ago, it was primary day that it happened. I'm sure I see everybody's face acknowledging that. And they stopped that primary. We have a chance to show the world this Tuesday
but they can't stop our way of life, our liberty, pursuit of happiness and justice. Get out. Go to that primary. Cast your vote. I went to Korea for you to have that right. Don't make it a wasted 2 years of my life or these lives. Please, get out. I don't care who you vote for. But vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, to close this wonderful thing we're doing here in this park today on this beautiful day, the good Lord has given His Son, and it's marvelous. I'd like to end this day where if we could all get our hands together again and all together sing God Bless America, and that will end the program today. God bless America. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.